Hi, good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, April 30th, E-period Algebra 1. Glad to see all your smiling faces. Let me go over some housekeeping chores. Make sure your camera's on. Make sure I can see your face as opposed to the ceiling fan. Let's see, what else? Couple of announcements. Let's see here, a couple of announcements. The 5-2 quiz. Let's see here, I'm missing a couple. I'm just gonna figure out what happened to them. Mr. Seeley, did you send in your 5-2 quiz? I'm not.
I was going to turn in Friday. Yeah, because
Sorry?
I was going to turn in Friday because that's when I get most of my missing assignments in.
Yeah, but why don't you turn it in before by the due date?
I thought it was already past due.
It's past due. But now it's past due. All right, let's see, Mr. Seeley. Let's see, who else am I missing? I think that's it.
Can you send me that quiz?
Oh, come on. Why are you making me triple and quadruple my efforts? Okay, I want you to go back to, let's see here, 423 on Blackboard, and it's attached there with a Dropbox. If you can't get it from there, send me an email and I will hold your hand and I will send you a new one. Come on, Mr. Seeley. You can do so much better than this. Come on, come on, come on. Plus, it's like, to kind of follow up with you guys, particularly since you're not in class and I can't kind of grab you by the collar of your shirt, it's real hard to, it's a bear of a nightmare trying to track you guys down and get you to do the missing assignments.
Hey, may I go use the restroom?
Mr. Velasquez, on the last quiz, you may want to go back and look at the problem sets on 5-2 to refresh your memory of what you're being asked to do. Take a look at those. I will forward you the retake because I'm not exactly sure what you were trying to accomplish with that, but it wasn't what the assignment and section was. So take a look at your problem sets. Hopefully you get some nice notes there and correctly completed problems and solving inequalities with multiplication division. And we're not having office hours today at 2 o'clock because we've got some kind of meeting with secretaries. I've got office hours tomorrow from 9 to 10. If you want to check it out, then I can walk you back through some of the methodologies for solving those. So take a look at that. And like I said, I will forward you the opportunity to retake because I think you had kind of a real misunderstanding of what you were asked to do. All right. Okay. So any questions before we get rolling? I'll kind of tell you what kind of back is. Questions? Okay. Hopefully you've got on your desk there in front of you 5-3 problem set number 2, which was solving inequality, multi-step inequalities, which really is a compilation of 5-1, 5-2, and 5-3. We're using addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. All right. So I'm gonna share my screen with you, and I just have the answer key. That way I don't have to do my scratching to write every single answer down. But that problem set is going to look like the test, and probably will only take us, well, I'll take as long as it needs to take, but maybe 15 or 20 minutes. Okay. We'll go over it. We'll work out any of the bugs and kinks. And then I've already loaded the test, and it's a test because it really covers the first half of chapter 5. All right. It has, I think, 16 problems total, maybe 14 problems total and 2 bonus questions. And what I'd like to do, if we don't need the whole period to cover it, is sign off early. particularly you guys that maybe don't have a half period class right after this, you could knock the test out. A couple words of caution. I would like, if you do it by 4 o'clock today, I will give you an extra 5 bonus points in addition to the 2 bonus questions on the test. If you do it by 5 o'clock today. And if it's going to be due by 5 o'clock tomorrow at the latest. Now, if you don't put it in, if you don't turn it in, you're going to get hammered on a late assignment. It is a test, and it very likely is the last and only test of this quarter. So since the value of tests is more than a quiz, you can repair a lot of damages or you can create a lot of damages. So please do it correctly, thoroughly, follow the instructions, and like I said, you pick up an extra 5 points if you have it done by 4 o'clock this afternoon. So I can print them out and take them to next grade. Any questions on that? Everybody can hear me okay, right? All right. All right. Share my screen with you. All right. So this particular problem set, we're solving multi-step inequalities, and this one included some applications of the distributed property. Okay, couple things to think about or to remind you of. I put it on the quiz, but I said, put it in solution set notation. I put an example of that actually on your quiz. So make sure you put it in this format, okay? Remember PEMDAS and order of operations. Since we got parentheses, we're going to apply the distributive property, applying that multiplying that t n to 3 times 2. All right. Take a look at those first 4 answers and see if they correspond with what you have. On this one here, you're going to multiply the 3 times the d and the 3 times the negative 2. So I've got, so I'm actually going to have 3d minus 6. The reason I'm writing it out, I'm going to give you a caution because I keep seeing this from somebody. I can't remember who it was. I'm going to single you out anyway. Okay. The caution is this 3d and this 2d are on the exact same side of the equation sign inequality. I do not want you to add 2d. You would add 2d if you were going to move it over to this side. Do not add 2d. Subtract the 2d from the 3d. So I don't know in a space. So we're going to have 3d minus 2d is d, and I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So that's how we went. The d is greater than 22. Please do not add 2d to combine these like terms. They're on the exact same side of the equation. If you've got that in your repertoire of how you do things, I know there's a couple of you that do that, we've got to undo that because that's going to cause a whole multitude of problems solving both equations and inequalities. Is there anything I can clarify on that or re-stress on that? They're on the exact same, anytime you're kind of combining like terms and they're on the exact same side of the inequality or they are on the exact same side of the equation, just do what the math is. Do not do the opposite like add or subtract. It's addition, subtract, it's subtraction, add. Do not do the opposites on the exact same side. Just do it as posted. Okay. On number 4, you may have an answer of, let's see, it's negative 14. You could have had negative 16/7. I would also accept that. It's the same thing, right? Because a 7 times the negative 2 is, 7 times 2 is 14. 14 plus 2 is 16. So that's also a good answer. Any questions on the first 4? Yeah. All right. There is 5 and 6. Now, let me give you a little word of caution here. So we got to distribute that negative outside the parentheses. All right, so I talked about, I think on Tuesday, you could, if it makes sense to you, you could pretend there's a -1 there. So now you've got 5x minus 2x. You have to distribute everything inside the parentheses, and now it's -3. If you didn't do that, that might be why you have a different answer. Any questions on 5 and 6? You can see what happens here. So if I combine these like terms, I got -7x. I add 3 to both sides, so I end up with -7x on one side of the equation, greater than or equal to, I add 3 to both sides, so if I add 3 over here, all right, question. I add 3 to both sides, so if I add 3 here, that 3 cancels, zeros out. I add 3 to those sides, now I got 4. And now you can see where that answer came from. Divide both sides by -7, which also, remember, if you multiply or divide by a negative number on an inequality, the direction of inequality flips. Any questions on the first side? You guys are quiet today. All right, let's see. There's the next. Let's see here. Just check your answers. I'm hoping you've got your answer sheet in front of you. I can see Mr. Steele looking down, making sure he's got the right answers to match up with my answer sheet. Check your answers versus my answers. I could possibly made a mistake. I'm just gonna be quiet. Just take a look. I want you to compare your answers versus mine, and then if I need to work any of these out, I'll be glad to do so. Let's look at a couple. I got to distribute that -2, so this becomes -2k. And then what? +2, right? -2 times -1 is a +2. And then go from there. And this becomes 8 plus k. There's another one here. I wanted to, this number 12's got a lot going on. So now you got 2n minus 8 minus 2 plus 2n. So you got a whole bunch of stuff, to combine. All right, and then we got 3n. Let's talk about this one. This one's got a lot of stuff happening. Okay. Okay. Now, what I would do is combine the like terms on both sides. Combine the like terms before I start moving things. Because if you're going to start moving things and we don't combine the like terms, you've almost doubled your workload. So I got 2n plus 2n. So this becomes 4n here, right? And I got a -8 and a -2. So that becomes -10, right? Is that right? Yeah. All right. So then if I subtract 4n from both sides, I now have -n on this side because I got a +3 and a -4n. So that takes care of this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. All right. Now I got to subtract 8 from both sides. So -8 zeros out, which is what I wanted. All right. And now I've got -10 plus a -8 is a -18. So now you can see where that answer came from, because then we had to multiply both sides by a -1 or divide by -1. And that reverses the direction of the inequality, right? And the changes the sign on both sides. Anything on 7 through 12 that needs clarifying? Are we getting these answers? That's good. Excellent. All right, let me scroll up. That's through 12. All the way up. There we go. Let me clear my board. All right. You see what happened on this guy, because now we have 2y minus 4 Everything's zeroed out, right? And I would also take no solution, or that's right. So now I've got 2y minus 4 and actually negative 4 plus 2y. I got the exact same thing on both sides of the inequality. So when I start moving things around, everything zeroes out, right? So I don't have a variable left to solve for. So that's why it's 0 or no solution. All right. 14, oh, let's talk about 14. I left the line there. Let's just talk about it. So now I got k minus 17, and I got minus 17 plus k, right? Is that right? Yeah.
When was this due?
There was no Dropbox for this one. It just I think Blackbox have it done for today's class. As a as a review for the test.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see here. Let's see. I was thinking here a minute if I need to clarify anything. Plus 17. I'm wondering why I put down two different. It's basically numbers 13 and 14 are the same thing. Let me just see why I did that. Give me 1 second here to check something. Double check. I'll tell you correctly. Let's see, that's 2y minus 2. 0. Okay. Why did I do that? It's 2y. I know why. It's very subtle, and it's almost kind of a trick problem. Okay, you can see the reason. You can see here everything cancels out, and everything cancels out here. All right, but I got two different answers. Why? And it's very subtle, and I'm not going to throw this curveball in there. This one has an equal to. All right, this one does not. All right. I'm not going to get that deep in the weeds on this, but the left side equals the right side, whereas this one, the left side is greater than the right side, right? So there's no value you could put in there to make that happen because everything zeroes out. This side, this one here has an equal to. So it's kind of, you get to the same point where everything zeroes out, but since this has an equal, it's all real numbers, okay? Subtle, just kind of know that and put it in the back of your memory bank. But that's why even these two problems, everything zeroed out, but you got different answers, and that's why. So I just want to check my sure. Okay, now let me.
Mr. Gaffney,
Yes, sir.
what do you want us, like, if we get that on like a test or a quiz, like, what do you want us to do? Do you want us to like still write the problem set like k/k equals like 0 with a line through it? Like, how do you want us to write it down? Like, if we
Yeah,
get that.
I'm thinking here. Let me just check. Let me just check to see if let me see if I did that. I'll give you a hint. There's none that zero out, okay? There's none that zero out, but I would take either this or no solution, all right? Like I said, this is very subtle because these two problems, but the left side and the right side, the variables and the constants all zero out, all right? It's kind of a quirk. It's kind of a uniqueness to inequalities, all right? The subtle difference is that guy doesn't have an equal sign, Whereas here, I could put any number I want in here, all right? One, I put one here, I put one here. If I put 1 million for this K, I put 1 million for that K. These two sides will equal. Because remember, it's this one here is less than or equal to, all right? You got an or there. It could be either less than or it could be equal to, all right? So I can put an infinite number of values, substitute for K, and I can get these two sides to equal, okay? Here, I don't have an equal. It's saying that this left side is always going to be greater than this right side. There's no value I can put in there to make that happen. So, be interested to see if, I have to go back and look at some practice PSAT tests to see if they throw you that curveball. It is a little bit of curveball, and it's very subtle. Matter of fact, that's why I had to kind of go back and look at my notes. Why these two problems, very similar, had two very different answers, and it's all because of that equal. So I can tell you right now on the test, none of them zero out. So don't get too hung up on it, but if you ever see this again, particularly on standardized tests, that's what's going on. Not to dodge your question. Mr. Martin. Mr. Martin, you got a question?
So will they take like stuff from so in the next school year, will they take stuff from last year and put it in the PSAT?
PSATs is a practice SAT, so you can you guys taking as a freshman or a sophomore, you're at a little bit of a disadvantage because it covers Algebra 1, which of course you're in right now. It covers geometry, which you'll be taking next year, and it covers the first semester of Algebra 2. So until you take it as a junior, you're a little bit behind the power curve or a little bit at a disadvantage because there may be things on there that you haven't been exposed to.
So just don't get stressed over answers we can't get.
Correct. And well, you're taking geometry next year.
Am I tripping or do I hear music?
I was going to say, just don't get stressed over answers. That's why next year I always try to do a couple of weeks of 1 or 2 PSAT practice problems every day to maybe expose you to things that you haven't seen yet just because you haven't taken Algebra 2 or you're starting geometry. Okay? Okay, these last 2 problems. I can tell you right now on the test, there's a couple that are bonus problems and there's a couple that are in the body of the test. The ones in the body of the test are not as difficult as the ones that are in the bonus problems. Because bonus is always kind of trying to stretch it a little bit. Okay, I think I removed this. There's no check your solution, but what I want to say, you got to do 2 things here. You've got to write the inequality, which means you're just taking this verbal statement and you're going to make an algebraic inequality. You got to do 2 parts if you want the correct answer as part of the test, or if you want all the bonus points. Right, so you got to write the inequality. So this one says twice the sum of a number and 4. Right? So that's that part. It's less than 12. So this is part 1. All right. If you just do that, you're going to only get half the bonus points. Part 2 is so now what you've created here is what we just did in the previous 14 problems. Now you're supposed to solve this, right? So you can either distribute the 2, or what I recognize is that's a nice even number. That's a nice even number. You can always do this, but on this one, it kind of shows you it works out nicely. I could distribute it 2. I could divide both sides by 2, and I get n plus 4 is less than 6. Let's see. I'm sorry, I left the 4 off, right? Because you see what I did? I divided this side by 2. Which is fine. I don't care which way you do it. It accomplishes the same thing. You can't always do that. If this was a 5, that wouldn't work, right? Because 5 is equal to 12. Right? And then I just subtract 4 from both sides, and there's the answer. All right, and then here's number 16. 3 times the sum of a number and 6. Remember, we did this back in, I think it was section 1-2 back in late August. Whenever you see and, you're doing something to 2 things. So you know you're going to have a parentheses, right? And then it's greater than 4 times the number decreased by 2. Decrease is the same as subtraction. So now you got to distribute the 3 and then move the 4 in over to this side and then solve. So this is part 1. This is part 2. Okay, so your test looks very similar to this. I think it is actually 14 problems with 2 bonuses. Okay. What can I clarify? The real Mr. Seeley is back live. What can I clarify with you? Let me should I raise it? Who does not have an F period? Where you add like art or something like that? Because let's see, there's half hour is probably not enough time to take this. It's probably just going to take you somewhere in the neighborhood of.
After F period, we have lunch. So.
Yeah, I guess you could start it, but if there's nothing, I've gone over everything you need to do the test. All right, this was a good.
Wait, sir, is the test gonna be like due tomorrow? Because I have to do a Latin quiz for my F period.
Okay, it's if you have it done by 4 o'clock today, you get an extra 5 points, but otherwise it has to be done by 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay. Let me see something here. Give me just 1 second before I.
Oh, Joe.
Okay. Mr. Martin, you still there? I didn't lose you, did I?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is this looks like the test. Get it done by 4 o'clock today and put it back in Dropbox. You get an extra 5 points plus the bonus, so you could possibly score above 100. But it has to be done by tomorrow. Mr. Seeley, what can I clear up or clarify? And next, when do I see you guys again? Next day I'm kind of cherry picking sections now to get you as best prepared for algebra 2 that we can these last couple of weeks. So we're going to skip around a little bit. Any questions on this or anything else for Algebra 1? Any questions? What I'd like to do is, again, give you some class time to start. You could actually start it and then come back to it at either lunch or after your after 2 o'clock today. I don't think any of your teachers are having office hours today because all the faculty here has a faculty meeting at 2 o'clock, and I think they're sending a letter out to you and parents just to alert you that.
They did.
That was just sprung on us this morning. What can I clear up? Otherwise, I will be glad to let you go tackle the test. Good luck. I want you to do well.
Wait, so sir, do we have to start on it during class, or can we just work on other work?
This is Algebra 1 time, so you have to start on it during class. Right. Hey, bob your head up and down. That's a yes. There we go. Mr. Martin, have you ever heard the phrase, sometimes you don't want to ask a question that you may not like the answer to, so you don't ask it. Algebra 1, you do Algebra 1 during Algebra 1. I'm trying to make it easy, make it accommodating for you so that you can, use a whole bunch of time outside of class to do this. You're welcome. All right, any questions?
How do you know if we'll start the test, sir?
A little birdie will tell me. Mr. Velasquez, if you need some outside assistance, office hours tomorrow from 9 a.m.
So can we get out early today?
Yeah, make sure you've got a full understanding of this before you tackle the test. Let me look at my notes. Anything else I owe people or they owe me? Not that I see. Okay. You guys are, any questions? Otherwise, you're free to go. Please do well on the test. Rush it so as you minimize Carol's mistakes. Take care of the bonuses. You can pick up an extra 5 if you have it to me today. I
Come out.
estimate it's going to take you between 25 and 35 minutes to do. Okay? And you're good to go unless you have a question.
What time is it? Wait, where the quiz gonna be at? I mean, the test.
Mr. Sealy, go ahead.
I was just saying bye.
Oh, bye. See you on Tuesday or office hours if you want to pick up an extra 10 minutes.
I will be there Friday or office hours. Wait, it's from 9 to 10?
Yes, sir.
9 to 10
Luke.
office hours. Okay.
Yes,
I'll be
sir.
there
You
Friday.
always get extra 10 points if you check in once during the week for your rep grade.
What, Joe?
Want to go fishing next week?
Yeah, I'll have to ask.
I thought he was asking me. All right, Mr. Hunter.
What did you say? Who's gonna be at again?
Wait, are we allowed to go?
Yes, sir, you're allowed to go.
Yeah.
Mr. Hunter, say again.
What did you say the quiz is gonna be at again?
It's not a quiz, so let's listen up. It's a test. It's in Blackbot. It's there right now. It's due by the end of the day tomorrow. If it's late, you get a 0. I'm not going back in and doing late work.
All right, so
It's a test, so make sure you do it.
all right,
Okay?
yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Gardner, you doing all right? I like your ceiling fan. Mr. Campbell? Mr. Campbell has left the room. Let's see, we'll stop sharing.